Gantry raised up in '08. Her sisters died from Berg and Mine.
The war's Olympic kept on sailing sure and true.
He's the pride of the White Star Line.
Yes, Sir Hairless here. Today we're back with a patron request, and this is the Longest Johns with their original song called Pride of the White Star Line. The Longest Johns, I imagine their name is a playful quip on Long John Silver from Treasure Island, but maybe there's another reason. So here's some information that I've been given ahead of this reaction. They are a sea shanty and folk group based in Bristol, England. Adam Chance of Home Free is a big fan of theirs. He stepped in to substitute one of them on one of their recent US tours, which is very, very cool. As I mentioned, it's an original song by them. I've been told it's written by the man who will be singing first. The group, they do a mix of a cappella and music with instruments. This one is an a cappella performance though. Here are the lyrics on screen. There are a lot of them, so please pause and read. It's about a ship, the RMS Olympic, which was the sister ship to the Titanic and the Britannic, both of which met very unfortunate ends through sinking. So this ship, it's the pride of the White Star Line.
In the Belfast yard where she was made of Holland Wolf design, the plan was struck to build 3 ships that funds would not define. The gantry raised up in '08, a nameless line arose to make the journeys to New York in record time, and so she's the pride of the White Star Line. May her engines never stall. Her sisters die from Berg and Mine, but she'll run for decades more. She'll run for decades more.
Olympic soon became her stamp. No finer ship did sail. Smoking rooms and Turkish baths and palm trees rail to rail. As sleek and striking as could be, and speed second to none. She sailed from Portsmouth dock and showed the world how it was done.
She's the pride of the White Star Line. May her engines never stall. Her sisters died from Berg and Mine, but she'll run for decades more. She'll run for decades more.
The hawk was running.
I like this. I like it for a number of reasons, which, well, hopefully I'll get into in a little bit with the analysis. So if you don't want to hear my analysis, go to the timestamp. All right, well, we've seen a lot of a cappella on this channel, namely Pentatonix, Home Free, Voice Play. A lot of these performances that we've seen, they are studio recordings. In other words, they're perfect. Immediately, we're shown that this is not that. And I mean that in a sincere way, because it shows that there's no pitch correction, no auto-tune, you know, it's raw a cappella singing. And it's a sea shanty. Sea shanties, they would have been sung by workers or labourers to help them to work in rhythm. I'm sure they would not have been perfect, far from it. So, stylistically, right from the off, it's spot on. The essence of the song and the style of music, it's encapsulated perfectly. Ironic as well how these songs would have been sung for rhythmic reasons, yet there's no beat of any kind. So what I mean by this not being perfectly in tune, all that kind of stuff. Let's listen to the first phrase.
In the Belfast yard where she was made of.
On made there. They're singing a tiny bit above the true pitch, so the piano's the tiniest bit not in tune with them anyway. But his note we'd expect it to be.
Was made up. Was made up.
It's quite a bit under what the note is, but it's authentic, and the singing style too, it's just authentic. You hear this and you don't think, oh yeah, this is a world-class singer whose voice is so unique and can never be replicated, like we might think of some of these people in the super famous groups. I mean, I love perfect music, of course, because it's, well, objectively perfect, but I love this too. And I think this is the kind of music where you watch it and it's really difficult to not enjoy it and understand the purpose of it and feel at one with it. I like his voice as well, this first singer. I like the huskiness of it, the slight hoarseness to it.
The plan was struck to build 3 ships that funds would not define.
Alright, so onto the harmony. What a great entry we get here of harmony.
Time, and so she's the pride of the White Star Line.
I'll quickly plug this into some music software. Because of the authenticity of this sound, it's difficult to pick out the individual parts more so than usual. I've just listened a couple more times. Yeah, definitely more difficult than it would be for, say, Pentatonix or Voice Play. Alright, so here are the 2 first chords, pretty much. The blue notes, they're just the same note. So the first chord, the harmony, the first harmony we hear, it's in 3 parts, 3 different notes, and then the second chord is into full 4-part. Not gonna lie, I originally had a different second chords, but I wasn't happy with it because I wasn't sure. So I've listened to these 2 chords for about a minute or so. I won't spend more time, but this is what I'm hearing at the moment. The fact it's difficult to distinguish between the voices, it means they have a very good blend. So those first 2 chords, this is what we're getting. If we go back to the first chord, you'll see that this is an E chord. E, however, is not on the bottom. If it was, it would sound like this. A much kind of fuller sound. This is a second inversion chord, which just means of the 3 notes that make up the chord, this would be root position. If this was on the bottom, it would be first inversion, but it's this one that's on the bottom, down an octave, so second inversion. The second chord that we hear is this. A dominant 7th chord, which typically means that then the chord afterwards will drop down 5 notes, which happens to be the first chord again. So that would sound like... But they don't sing exactly this dominant 7th chord. This note is actually... This adds a dissonant element between these 2 notes, which makes the chord much more together and scrunchy. Also, I glossed over it, but why is the first chord second inversion instead of root? Well, it's because the second chord, if we look at the name of it again, B dominant 7. With a dominant 7th chord, you'd usually want to have the root note at the bottom, in this case the B. The bass part for the first 2 chords doesn't change.
She's the pride.
She's the... So it's because of this second chord, the B dominant 7th, that the first chord, the E chord, has the B on the bottom, so it doesn't move from chord 1 to 2. I often explain in my videos that it's much harder to pick apart their individual voices when the group of singers, the chords that we hear, are lower down in pitch in general. This is due to these slower frequencies. If you want to practice listening to individual parts in a cappella music, this is a great example, and try and focus on the bass line.
She's the pride of the White Star Line. May her engines never stall.
It's a great style of music too. There's a lot of freedom sliding between notes.
None. She sailed from Portsmouth dock and showed the world how it was done.
Just little nuances here and there to really add character to it. I can imagine Adam Chance of Home Free fitting in perfectly here and singing some sea shanties with them.
Berg and mine, but she'll run for decades more. She'll run for decades more. Run for decades more. The hawk.
Okay, so as for guessing who's singing which part, like I always try to do with new a cappella groups, this is tricky because the chorus, it's repeated and it's just fully homophonic, so they're all singing the same words at the same time with the same rhythms as each other. All the voices are lower down, so it's naturally harder to pick them apart anyway, and they have a great blend with each other. Their voices are similar stylistically to each other. Plus, I've only heard 2 of them sing solos, so I haven't heard the other 2 independently. So it's tough, but I have an idea, but we will need to see more of the song. The one person I'm fairly confident in though is him, the tall guy with the glasses. I think that he is the bass. I guess we'll find out later on if I'm horrifically wrong on that. It was actually his solo when we paused, so let's carry on.
He'll run for decades more. The hawk was running long her side around the Isle of Wight. A swing to starboard up and took the helmsman by surprise. 2 holes were punched into her side and water flooded in. She staggered back to Portsmouth dock and lived to sail again. She's the pride of the White Star Line. May her engines never stall. Her sisters die from Berg and mine, but she'll run for decades more. She'll run for decades more.
Titanic sank into the depths, Britannic joined her too. Through the wars, Olympic kept on sailing sure and true. Missions out in open sea with U-boats in her stead. Damn near cut 'em clean in two and sank 'em to the bed.
She's the pride of the White Star Line. May her engines never stall. Her sisters die from Berg and mine, but she'll run for decades more. She'll run for decades more. Now
Sorry, I'm trying not to mime or sing along, but I can't help it with this music. You just want to join in. All right, yeah, so some things from that middle part. The music is mostly the same, so I'll try and focus on more, well, different things. About the style, the funness of it, I've noticed there are these little actions that we see, particularly with the first singer. Here, he turns around and looks at the camera.
Up and took the helmsman by surprise to hold.
I like in general how it's like a story tell. When one person's singing, the others they're reacting or nodding along, acknowledging the story. Like a nice little musical story time or something. Here too, he'll put his head in his hands.
Tattoo through the wars,
It is also interesting seeing their different styles of storytelling. Some of them are more emotive, more physical actions, like we saw with the singer whom I think is the bass.
Back to Portsmouth Dock and live to sail again.
Or the first singer. And also those little nuances I was mentioning, how they differ between each singer. From a vocal technique perspective, here, this singer, he seems a tiny bit quicker, a bit more airy towards the end of the phrases.
Olympic kept on sailing sure and true. Missions out in open sea with U-boats in a stead.
The subtlest hints of vibrato coming through at the end, but they're overshadowed by this airy sound. If we compare it to the second verse, to him,
smoking rooms and Turkish baths and palm trees rail to rail.
there's more conviction in this vibrato. But again, it's all part of this style of music. I don't think anyone should be critiquing technique or perfectness with music like this, because that's not the point. So I really hope it doesn't seem like I am, because I'm not. I was just referencing the studio recordings of some of the best and well-known a cappella groups in the world that we've seen on this channel, not for comparison, but as a reference point, because people watching this video, my video right now, who found me through Pentatonics, through Home Free, through VoicePlay, might be used to and accustomed to that standard of recording. Like I said before, I really like this. It's got so much character. And also, I'd just like to point out, if it isn't obvious, that the standard is incredibly good. 4-part harmony, a lot of people can sing, but getting a good blend and understanding each other in such a way is what sets groups like this apart from other groups. I'm probably digging myself a bit of a hole here, but yeah, this isn't pitch corrected or auto-tuned or touched up in any obvious way. To me, this just sounds like the raw recording, at least for the most part. There's no multi-tracking. It's a perfectly replicable performance if they were to perform this without any equipment at all. So in short, I love it. I hope I don't come across like I'm trying to pick out any imperfections or that I'm critiquing it, because that's not the case at all.
She's the pride of the White Star Line. May her engines never...
Oh, yeah, it just makes you want to sing along. Alright, so where we got to, we've done a full loop. All 4 of them have each had their own verse. So let's carry on until the end.
Decades more. Now every dog must have its day, and all good things must pass. Shipyards forged much bigger crafts that dwarfed her in her class. The trips were few and fares declined, the world marched on ahead. They pulled her down in Jarrow Town, still striking till the end. She's the pride of the White Star Line. May her engines never stall. Her sisters died from Berg and mine, but she'll run for decades more. She'll run for decades more. She'll run for decades more.
Hey. Simple but nice. Just simple but nice. There's not much more to say in the way of music, because the music is by definition repetitions. The choruses are repeated, the verses are repeated with different lyrics. Melodically, harmonically, the parts are the same. So the main difference is who's singing each verse and, the lyrics. In terms of variety though, what they can do to create variation, the rhythms, that's one thing. And we had our first noticeable ritardando, slowing down. It comes at the end of this verse.
Jarrow Town still striking till the end.
And then the chorus starts slower.
She's the pride of the White Star Line.
It's bigger. There's a bigger feeling of camaraderie, which leads into the kind of main moment of some, I want to say stark harmonic change. It's not stark, but it's noticeable because it's different.
But she'll run for decades more. She'll run for
on there, she'll, the bass part.
For decades more. She'll run for
actually, no, the bass part stays.
Decades more. She'll
This is what I mean about it being a bit more difficult to pick out the lower voices. But yeah, the bass part, it stays on that bottom E. That's the lowest note we hear. So the bass is here. The part above it though moves to this note. If we bring the bass up, it's this intense dissonance.
Decades more, she'll run for decades.
And then that leads into the main obvious different bit. Here it is.
More.
Let's quickly put that into sheet music. So here we can see a nice contrary motion between the two lower parts that move down and the upper part that moves up. The middle part stays fairly static. So it's this idea of the arrangement kind of opening up and pulling apart. This bit, it really reminds me of the introduction to Home Free's version of Ring of Fire.
It's more.
Yeah, that was a fun one, wasn't it? Maybe it's just me, but I would definitely challenge the idea that this is not something that you want to sing along to. Loads of cool little things there, slight stylistic differences between them, little funny comedic actions. You can tell they're a fun group and the music is very fun. Yeah, I enjoyed that a lot. Alright, well, thank you for this request and thank you to everyone for watching. Would appreciate a like and subscribe. If you enjoy my content, want to support me, get access to perks, you can do so by clicking on the link to the Patreon on the screen now, and I will see you next time.